Ben and Me, Chapter 5. We do some printing. One of Ben's chief interests, of course, was printing. I said that he wrote so much stuff that the only thing to do with it was print it. He felt differently about it, though. Said it was the foundation of his fortune. The dissemination of knowledge was man's highest calling, and so on. Consider Poor Richard's almanac, Ben would say. Consider the good that has done for countless thousands. Consider the information. Oh, that thing that tells when the sun rises and sets? What good is that to anyone? When the sun's up, it's up. Why read about it in a book? But, said Ben, consider the maxims it contains. Think of the lives that have been molded by their wisdom. Consider them, I snorted. Have I ever time to consider aught else? Here we have maxims for breakfast, dinner, and supper. Have they molded your life? Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy and wealthy and wise. Bah! When have you ever been to bed early or risen early, except when you had insomnia? Yet you're healthy and wealthy. Perhaps if I'd lived by the maxim, I should also be wise, he suggested meekly. That I doubt, said I. It would require more than a maxim, a miracle more like. Then there's that horrid one you wrote, The cat in gloves catches no mice. There's a fine idea to be putting into the heads of cats and you, my friend. I'm sorry about that one, truly, said Ben. It was done before your arrival. I shall delete it in the next edition. Left to myself, said I'd delete the whole thing. That, he said, would be a great mistake, for many thousands are sold each year at no little profit to us, and profits, Amos, buy bread and leisure and cheese. There seemed to be some reason in that, so we let the matter drop. We used to spend a good deal of time at Ben's printing shop, for although he had more or less retired, he still loved to putter around among the presses, reading proofs and getting in the way generally. The long afternoons there, while splendid for napping, sometimes were a bit tiresome, so I used to putter about some myself. I stayed well away from the presses, however, having suffered a most painful injury to my tail in one of them. One afternoon, while thus idling about, I came upon the type forms for Poor Richard's almanac, all set up and ready to print. The first thing to catch my eye was the odious cat and gloves maxim, which Ben, of course, had forgotten to delete. So I deleted it. It was rather fun, picking out the letters and dropping them on the floor. So I continued with a few more alterations. Each maxim read, As Poor Richard says, or Says Poor Richard. Now, there never was any real Poor Richard. Ben just made him up, and I always considered it downright dishonest. So whenever the name occurred, I removed and substituted Amos. This was not vanity on my part, but merely a desire for honesty, for there really was an Amos. Besides, it was the only name I could spell. I spent a happy afternoon and had time enough left to make a few corrections to the tide table, where it appeared wrong to me, as well as some risings and settings of the moon. I did not bother to tell Ben of these improvements, for he was busy with other concerns. But a week later, they were brought to his attention in rather dramatic fashion. In the midst of our after-supper nap came a great rapping at the front door, and the harbor master burst in a state of utmost terror. "Fly, Dr. Franklin! Fly for your life!" he shouted. "Calm yourself, friend," said Ben. "Haste makes waste, you know. What appears to be your trouble?" "Trouble!" sputtered the man. "Trouble enough with the harbor filled with ships aground. Do you realize this thing," waving the almanac under Ben's nose, "predicts high water at 10 o'clock, that 18 ships set sail at 10 o'clock, that every last one of them went high and dry aground at 10 o'clock. Why? Because the tide was low at 10 o'clock. That's why. Do you realize that the shipmasters are on their way here now to mob you? Do you realize that the moon you predicted—" "Never mind the moon," interrupted Ben, snatching the almanac and quickly running through it. He frowned, and I could almost hear him mumble, Amos says Amos. Amos says. We could hear shouts and the tramping of feet of the shipmasters outside. One or two vegetables mashed against the window. The harbor master hid in the closet, but Ben suddenly smiled and, opening the window, calmly stepped out on the balcony. Friends, he said, there has been a great mistake. The crowd agreed with jeers, catcalls, and more vegetables. But, he went on, no mistake on poor Richard's part, or mine. For this, my friend, holding up the almanac, this is no almanac of mine. In the true Poor Richard's Almanac, there are diverse maxims, adages, proverbs, saying, and bits of wit and information, all spoke by Poor Richard. If you will but look with care at this scurrilous counterfeit of my almanac, you will find nowhere in it the name Poor Richard, but only that of one Amos. No doubt, a contemptible, ignorant, and inaccurate fellow. No, my friends, this is but a foul hoax perpetuated by an envious rival who hopes to thus discredit the true Poor Richard's Almanac. Hereafter, always insist on the genuine and accept no substitutes. There was considerable mumbling and thumbing of almanacs under the torchlight, and one or two voices could be heard to say, Gum, he's right, and good old Ben. Moreover, friends, Ben added, according to the calculations of the real Poor Richard, whose accuracy has never been questioned, the tide will be high at precisely 3:37 o'clock. I should advise, therefore, that you return to your ships with all haste, for they will soon be afloat. They hastened off, and Ben saw the trembling harbor master to the door. When he returned, he looked very stern and solemn. Amos, he said, Amos, I smell a rat. He may have smelled a rat, but he certainly saw no mouse, for I was well hid under the deepest pile of litter, and there I stayed for 2 days. Well, we'll read chapter 6 next time. Until then, as Tigger says, ta-ta for now. Thanks for listening. I hope you've shared and liked and subscribed. Bye-bye. Love you guys.